How hard could it be? Starting with a 10-foot long rough sawn piece of walnut, I laid it out just to get the length of the guitar and marked that, and then laid it out to cut another piece I'm going to rip in half to get the other side of the body. I'm doing this guitar as a one-piece neck and body, so the midsection of the guitar is one piece the whole way up with a fretboard laid on top afterwards. It's a little bit different, a little bit more difficult. I cut those two pieces down to size, then take them to the table saw. The first piece I rip in half, and then the longer piece, that's the integral neck and body, I just resawed down the sides of it so I have a clean edge to glue up to, and this is just a rough glue up for the body. I'm not going to plane anything until it's all together. I made the body a little bit narrower than standard so I can fit it through my 13-inch planer, and I can plane the whole thing at once afterwards, making it a little bit easier. So I've laid the guitar over top of it, and I'm going to lay out the guitar on that roughly, and then I'm planing what I resawed just to get it flat enough to glue up. And then I'm going to use my domino joiner and join everything together and glue it all together. The one thing that I ran into is that I didn't lay out my dominoes and the shape of my guitar when I first started. So you'll see as I'm doing this and putting it all together, if I had laid out the shape of the guitar, I would have realized that one of my dominoes was misplaced, and I had to change the shape of the guitar later on because of this. But didn't matter, I still like it. It made the neck a little bit longer, and it's going to make it so I have easier access to the last couple frets for the highest notes. I'm using 10 mil dominoes, which are the biggest that this small domino will do, and I'm doing 4 per side just to hold it together, and it's really more for alignment. I doubt that this kind of glue up would need this extra strength, but it never hurts. And I got smart halfway through this and started using a yellow pencil that I can see on the wood instead of using a black pencil that I couldn't really see. And here you can see I moved my dominoes so that they were inside of the shape of the guitar that I wanted to end up with. Whereas the first side that I cut together, I didn't do that. Hopefully the shape that I made in the end is going to avoid that extra domino. I'm actually going to lose one that's inside of the guitar. This is one of them is going to end up being part of the waist. It's not that big a deal, but it's just something to note for next time. I used the PVA glue and 4 dominoes. The first domino hole is tight at the very right side of the guitar you're looking at, and then the other 3 are loose fit, just to make it easier to mark them out. And they're really just adding alignment while it's being glued up. So I was pretty heavy on the glue again because I'm going to run the whole thing through a planer when it's done, and I'm not that concerned about run out or cleaning up the outside of this at all. It's got a fair amount of extra thickness on it, especially in the body section. So I'm also not concerned about it being slightly twisted or anything. As long as I get a good clean glue line, that's really all I'm looking for at this part. And so I've got the glue up for the body done, and now I'm going to start working on a template for the body, neck, and headstock all as one that I'm going to use on the router table to route the shape out of everything. This is a piece of maple that I'm going to use for the neck later on. For the fretboard, I'm going to end up making my fretboard a little thicker so that I can run the whole thing through the planer, and bring what I glue on for the fretboard is going to bring up the height of the neck afterwards instead of the way that it normally runs through, because they're both on a separate angle. So I traced the guitar that I had, and then I just changed it up a little bit wherever I felt it needed it, and changed up the cutouts on it as well. I made them more equal, and in the end I actually made the one on the bottom even shorter just so that they weren't exact, because I didn't get them exact and you could tell they weren't the exact same. So I just switched it up and made it a little bit different, and in the end hopefully it looks all right. I'm sure it will. I decided to use my Festool CMS table and the jigsaw insert to cut the template out, rather than trying to pull out my bandsaw, take the rip fence or the resaw fence off, and then you know, put this big 4-foot long guitar template through that. This I felt maybe took a little bit longer, but it was a little bit easier, and a jigsaw blade is pretty good at getting into tight radiuses like the cutouts in the body where they meet the neck. And it's a tool I don't often get to use, so it's kind of cool when you get to use something that you have and it really just sits on the wall waiting to get used. It was a novelty that I bought. It was inexpensive, so I'm not really offended at having bought it and not used it, but it's kind of cool when you get to use something like that that really no one else has, and you know, it's different. So the only thing that I didn't really cut close to the line on was the neck, because I wanted to sand it all in a straight line with a block afterwards and give it a little bit of a taper. So everything else I sanded, or I cut, sorry, on the jigsaw right up to the line, and left the neck a little bit rough. And then to clean up everything and to get all of my curves into a nice, you know, round, even look, I used a rattle can and some 40 grit sandpaper. When you twist the can or tip it back, you can actually change the shape that it's going to sand from being round to like oval or oblong. And that lets you get into different contours on the guitar and make everything even and smooth, rather than it can be kind of rough when it's off the jigsaw. This is an old trick from doing body work and cleaning up the edges of curves on cars or anything like that. And then I took a block and 40 grit and I sanded the edge of the neck, and I used a straight edge to keep checking it and make sure that I had actually gotten it straight, relatively straight, because when it's on the guitar it's not going to matter as long as it's wide enough and it's straight enough. So it took a little bit of refining, and this probably took the longest out of anything in making the body or the template, was to clean everything up and get it smooth and round. If I had a spindle sander and a disc sander, this would have been a lot easier, but I don't have one of those yet, so I had to make do with what I had. There's the template done, and there's the body of it glued up, and it's going to dry overnight. And so tomorrow I'm going to come back and make the second part of this and get that all cut out, routed out, and flat and ready to go. I hope you enjoy.